Alright, makeup's fixed, hair's did, bra's on. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the Mama and a Manse podcast. I'm Christy, your hostess today, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Mama and a Manse. You can go in the Ravelry group. Join in, that's where giveaways usually happen, and you can ask me any questions that you would like to see answered on the podcast. I think that's all the administrative stuff. I am kind of sitting further away from the camera today by necessity, so hopefully it's not too distracting to have so much background. Also, it is summertime and all of the kids are awake because I wanted to do this before it got completely dark. So we will see how this goes. Hopefully anyone who interrupts is clothed. So, where to start? I guess I will go with finished objects. I have a few. It's been a couple of weeks since I podcasted. If this is your first time here, I am participating in Stash Dash, which is hosted by the Knit Girls, and I have not done an update since the first week, and it's now like the 5th week. So I have a few things to share with you. The first are socks for my son Isaiah. They are made out of the Regia Perfect kids color, and these don't have a color name, they just have a number, but these are the orange ones. I don't know how well you can see, but this is the pattern that it's supposed to be. I bought these at Knit Paper Scissors in Lincoln, Nebraska. And basically they're made so that you can have a matching pair of socks. They have built-in yarn for the heels, toes, and cuffs. Yeah. So my son Isaiah is 8 years old, and so I made them, and I thought that ending at the pattern end was going to be long enough for him, but once they were all sewed up, they were not, and so I actually went back and added more toe to it. So you can see that it is much longer on the toe than you would expect. These fit him pretty well. I did 54 stitches because I was doing a 2x1 rib at the top, and so I needed it to be divisible by 3. And I did a fish lips kissed heel, and then I had to do quite a bit straight in the orange colorway that was for the toe before I started my decreases. So they look a little bit funky. I'm not really unhappy with it, but I would say that if you want to use the Perfect, to keep in mind that they are, I feel like they are designed for smaller children. Calling it kid is maybe a little bit, I don't know, optimistic, because while my husband is 6'7" and I am 5'9", our kids are not giants. My son, I think, wears like a 13 in shoes, US, and so he has long skinny feet sort of, but they're not really that big. Lots of kids his age wear bigger shoes than him, so I don't feel like having it be able to fit an 8-year-old with the patterning balanced would be like unexpected. So there are 2 of these. I redid them. Redid one toe and added a lot on the next one. So these are finished, and I have a story about finishing those that I will share later on. The next thing that I went ahead and finished were my Vagary socks, which are by Knitting Expat. It was part of her Cozy collection, which is the more intermediate one. And I believe it was the May the month of May sock collection that came out. You can't really tell from the black and white because truthfully the patterning is pretty, I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's texture, but it's not something that you really see. I chose to knit these in Chili Knits yarn in her Cuddly Sock. She does have a podcast, both in Spanish and English. And this Cuddly Sock is an 8515 superwash merino nylon. I believe that the main color was actually labeled wrong and that this is Fruit Loops, because I think the other colorway I have is Imagination, and that's what this one says. And this pink is, I think, Bubblegum or something like that. But I really wanted it for heels, toes, and cuffs. So here are my two socks, and you can see the patterning a little bit on there. It is kind of a knit purl texture thing going on. I did these with 60 stitches this time. I feel like my gauge is tightening up a little bit, and so also because on one row of the pattern, it's like a 12-row repeat, and you do it 3 times in there, so you take out a lot of stitches. And so I was a little bit worried that if I did the 56 that I've been doing, that there'd be like kind of tight places. So I went ahead and did 60 and Fish Lips Kiss Heel as usual, 2x1 rib. But I do want to say this sock yarn is the softest sock yarn I have. It is so soft. Every time that I would get it out and I'd be knitting with it, I was just petting it. And truthfully, I was knitting my fading point, you know, a lot during the time that I was knitting these. And it is very soft yarn, and I was, you know, felt very luxurious to me. And even comparing it to these, when I would get these out, I would just like sit there and pet my sock, and then I of course would have to make my husband pet my sock, and it was just kind of a weird whole thing. But anyways, these are Vagary socks in Chili Knits yarn, Fruit Loops, and I believe Bubblegum. It's just a hot pink colorway, also from her, and I would very highly recommend her yarn. I had, you know, been kind of leery about wanting to order it because it's coming from Chile, which is in South America, and just the whole like postage taking forever and being a lot and yada yada yada. And so she was having a free worldwide shipping, so I made sure that I ordered, you know, like 5 skeins to make it like worth her having that. But I also felt like I was still getting the deal because I wasn't actually paying for shipping. It's a whole thing for me. Free shipping is something that gets me. But this yarn is delightful. I would definitely pay for shipping from Chile for this. It is wonderful. I do have another kind that is silk instead of nylon that I will be making socks with pretty soon because I want to try it out too. I loved this. And truthfully, this color, the speckles is just, oh, it makes me so happy. I'm so excited about these socks. I love them. My girls both want to steal them. I can't say enough good about Chili Knits. Okay, so then the second thing that I finished is my Morning Mist by Anne Claire. Annie Claire, excuse me. I want to say Anne for some reason. This was done in Cotton, Whisker, and Rocket. It is a DK weight from Knit Picks. It's 70% cotton, 30% linen. So these are the 2 colors that I used, Rocket and Whisker. I always want to say Whisper, so I'm not sure if I just said Whisper, but it's Whisker, like a kitty has whiskers. And so here is my finished shirt. I kind of had been really going slow on this, and then one day I picked it up. I was right here. I finished that in about a day. Doing the necklines and the shoulders took a little bit longer. This has not been blocked and it's been folded, so it looks kind of wobbly and weird. It does have this nice detail of on the back that'll be across my shoulders, and it's a very boxy shape. I haven't worn it yet. I just did the neckline maybe 2 days ago, and I was wanting to podcast that day, and so I didn't block it because I didn't want it to be all wet and then try to like maneuver it around, because cotton is heavy and wet when it's wet. So anyways, I do have one place that I am just unsure about. I don't know if you can tell on here. Yeah, you can. There is like a hole here. I don't know when it's on how super noticeable that would be. It is not from me picking up stitches. I re-picked up that area about 4 or 5 different times. I knitted a few rounds, and I dropped down and tried to pick it up differently again. And it just seems like it almost seems like when I was knitting the shoulder area that I accidentally put an extra yarn over, well, there's no yarn overs, but a yarn over by accident or something into close to the edge. Because no matter what I did, it still had that kind of hole right there, which I can almost, you know, get part of a thumb through. So what I think I'm going to do, since I tried multiple times to pick it up, and it, you know, I made sure it was going down the same row of knit stitches that I was picking up in and everything like that. You know, all this is really pretty straight, and then it seems like it jogs over right there. So I think what I might have done is accidentally put a yarn over in there. I am not going to think back to that. I will probably just tack that so that the hole doesn't show. Because actually on the camera it's more noticeable than it is in real life. Because I kind of have to look for it in real life just because it's at the edge of that garter stitch. But anyways, this is the Morning Mist, and it's a nice little summer top that I will have to wear for Synod School when I teach my first knitting class. I am excited about that, and I need to get to work on it, so it's not super exciting to see because it's mostly just plain and a huge boxy shape, but that is finished. The next thing that I finished, I did not finish in time for the cowl. I was on an all-day yoga retreat the day that it was due, and I just had a little bit too much left to do. I just had a few things at the bottom, but truthfully, when you also have a picot bind off, I was like, there's no point in like stressing out and trying to knit this because it's not going to be finished. Like the next day I finished it, but this is the Drop 'em Like It's Hot shawl by Cozy Up Designs. They also have a podcast. If you haven't been watching it, you should be. They're a very fun set of sisters who design and podcast together. And why in the world do I have stitches pulled? Okay, so this is in Polka Dot Creek cotton yarn. And it is in the teal colorway, and the variegated is Jewel. Here it is in all of its gorgeous glory. I used the same colors that Sarah used, only I reversed them because when I wear it, I felt like the variegated is what would show more. And so I wanted, or whatever was on the bottom is what would show more, and I wanted that to be the variegated. What did I do? There's my end. I wanted it to be the one that really was showcased. And so I switched because she did have the blue on the bottom, but Jamie's shawl, she had her variegated on the bottom, and I really liked that. So I got this all blocked. I did do the picots, which I kind of love, and made it easier to block because I just went through each picot with my wires and then pulled like crazy. I did spray block it like they suggested for this yarn. It is a cotton yarn, so I kind of pinned it all out, and then I used a squirt bottle to squirt it and wet it down, and then I just kept stretching it because, quite honestly, there's a little bit now that you can still see, but getting this garter tab start to lay flat, I mean, it was really bunchy up here. I just kept spraying it and then like pushing it out from there and then moving out my wires, and it took a little bit, but probably not as long as if I was like regularly soak blocking it and then putting it through like every stitch, because those picots kind of saved me for that. The picot bind off truthfully did not seem like it took that long at all. I've done a few of those recently, and so I felt like I went through that pretty quick. I'm very happy with this. This is not a color that I would actually consider to be teal. It's probably the color of the dye. I think a teal is more green, but it is gorgeous, and the color goes so beautifully with this jewel color with the purple and the white, and I really love it. I am not a fan of passing stitches over constantly, which there was a lot of this. There was a lot of triple yarn overs that you were then passing a stitch over and dropping and things like that. And so I wouldn't say it was like the most enjoyable knit in the world when you were doing the process, but quite honestly, it was completely worth it. I love this lace. I love how summery and nice it is. It weighs almost nothing. It's just lovely, and I'm so happy to have a cotton shawl that I can wear, and I will also be taking this to Synod School for like examples of knitting for my kids that I will be teaching how to knit. I'm also thinking about the county fair, which is coming up right after we come back from Synod School, and I have not decided. I think you can only put one thing in for a category, and so shawls is all one category, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do this one or the other thing that I finished, which I am so happy with. Sorry, it takes like 10 minutes just to unfold this. Ta-da! This is why I had to sit really far from the camera, and you can't even see all of it, and it's hitting me in the lip gloss. So I don't remember where I was when I showed you last. I don't remember if I even showed you the second half. But I did fly through the second half, and then putting these squares, or the like triangles that go in right here. It just flew. I think I had gotten used to the lace, and it just went so quick. I was super afraid that I was going to run out of this first color, which is the really dark blue, but you don't actually go all the way to the dark blue in this. You just go to the darkest purple. Now I have wool in my lip gloss because my shawl touched me. And so it was okay. This is all that I had left of that one, and that was without it even being in that last one. So I got the Mountain Twilight kit, Fading Point kit from Miss Babs Yarns in the Yowza 2-ply, and this, of the 5 skeins, is all I had left. I didn't weigh this, I kind of forgot, but there's not much left. I used all of it. I think there will be enough to go in my blanket and then maybe not very much more for a couple minis for trading and stuff like that. But I am so happy with this. I have to show it really big to you again and get more wool in my lip gloss because it is so gorgeous. I wasn't falling out of love with it, but I was just kind of, you know, it's almost done. I just need to finish it, and I don't know. I wasn't as excited about it as I had been in the beginning. And then when I took the final, I didn't really spread it out and look at it once I started on these triangles. I was just kind of going, and when I took it off the middle triangle, when I took it off and I went over, we have a door that is like a full mirror, and I kind of just held it up like this and I saw it and I just was like it was wonderful. But here is the fading point. It's by Joji Locatelli. Totally worth all the yarn that went into it. It is just absolutely beautiful. It has been crazy hot and humid and raining for the last month, so I have not worn it. I did block it. I did not aggressively block it. It is humongous. I did not even measure it, but I can't. My wing, I'm 5'9", and I have a good amount. I have like another foot on both hands that is I can't stretch it out. So I did not aggressively block it. What I did was I did soak it, and then with lots of color catchers in it. I had a conversation with my yarn lady today about indie dyed yarn bleeding, and she's been having some issues with it, and I did take color catchers and I put them, you know, by the light, by the dark, and kind of layered it in as I was soaking it. So I soaked it, rolled it in towels, stepped on it, did all that kind of stuff. Then I laid it out on my mats and I just kind of pushed it out to open up the lace, and I felt like that was enough. I mean, it looks good to me. So I did not feel the need to try to put 3 or 4 wires down a side and another one across the end to block it. And I think it looks wonderful. It's got a good drape. I'm very, very much rebelling against the fact that fall will eventually come. But I am looking forward to wearing this gorgeousness. I just can't even. I did have it finished in time for entering it into Joji's knit along, but I did not take pictures of it. So yeah, I haven't taken finished photos of any of this stuff. I was actually going to try to do that today, since I do have a bra on and makeup and hair and all that stuff. But it is sort of acting like it's going to get stormy. It is a little after 6, so I'm not sure that I'm going to have the light, but we will see. Anyways, those are all of my finished objects, right? Surely there's not more. I finished a lot lately. I'm very, very proud. So, week 1 for Stash Dash, I had done 316 yards, and those were blanket squares that I finished. So with the Isaac socks, the Isaiah sock, oh no, I do have one more half object that is part of this total. The Vagary socks, the Drop-In Blankets hot shawl, the Fading Point shawl, and the Morning Mist top. That was 3,636 meters, which brings my total up to 3,952. Just below 4,000. We're 5 weeks in, there's 8 weeks left, so that's probably good. I kind of hoped it would be higher than that when I did the math. I did not do any math trying to figure out like how much each project would probably have in it. I just was like, okay, I have a lot of stuff, I want to knit a lot this summer, so I picked the 10,000. I was hoping I would be closer to the halfway point, even though we do have more than half of Stash Dash left. But I am happy with the things that I've finished. I feel like I've accomplished a lot recently. So since I already alluded to my half object, which is included in that, when I finished the Isaiah socks and handed both of them to Isaiah to try on, my little son Isaac, who's 3 and has a speech delay, he came over and put his foot up in my lap and handed me my empty needles and told me to knit, 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 and just kept doing this and saying knit, knit, knit. He wanted his socks. So I, of course, cast them on, and this is the same Regia Kids Perfect, only in a green color. So not super different or exciting. And I also got that from Knit Paper Scissors in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I have one of his finished. I did go down to 52 stitches, but because his foot, his leg and foot, Isaiah has chicken legs. They are very, very skinny. Isaac is he's not chubby, but he is maybe a little bit more husky than why did I name my kids these names? Than Isaiah has been throughout life. I only went down 2 stitches for him, and I am knitting them on the Addy Flexi Flips, which are, they say they're US ones, but they're really 2.5 millimeters, which is larger than my normal sock needle, which is 2.25, the normal US one. Fish Lips Kiss Heel. I did a 2x1? Why does it look weird? Yeah. No. What did I do? Did I do it? I did 1x1 rib. 1x1 rib on his rounded toe. And I did finish his a little bit, I have a little bit of patterning left to go in my pinwheel scrap blanket. I didn't weigh how much is actually there, but there's quite, what I did was when I got to the point that it was covering his pinky toe, because I think where I went wrong with Isaiah's is that I stopped at the bottom of his pinky toe, which is what I do for me, but it didn't make the toe long enough. And so I'm also, because Isaac is 3 and growing like a weed, I went to the top end of his pinky toe before I started the toe. And then I just pulled out all of the rest of the patterned yarn and all of the toe yarn, and from the opposite end, so like the Perfect has this yellow, the yellow yarn to show you where to stop and go to the next one. So from the end that was closest to the yellow, so the end of the toe yarn, I started knitting with that and did the toe so that I would have the patterning to use in my scrap yarn blanket, and then the rest of the green, because I'm sure that that wasn't 5 grams considering how short Isaiah's ended up being. This is not the softest yarn in the world. It is probably softer than I would expect a super commercial sock yarn to do, but I do love the little patternings. I'm loving this lime green color. I'm very obsessed with lime green lately. And you know what? I don't think I've tried this on since I put the toe in, but I have not started the next one. But I did, I was having a problem with the Flexi Flips. I had told you that the millimeters was different than the US measurement. And so I took them in because one of the joins on the ones that I had before was rough and it was catching the yarn, and so whenever I would go to slide the yarn on one of the needles, I could hear it catching the yarn and kind of tearing it. And with this being kind of a more rustic yarn, I didn't feel like that was a huge problem, but I definitely wouldn't have used it on a nicer like indie dyed sock yarn. You know, this was like 10 bucks. That's different than one that you're spending 28, 30 bucks on, and is much softer. And while it's still stock yarn, it feels a little more delicate. And so I would not have used them in a nicer sock yarn or a more elite sock yarn. I don't want to say nicer, that's kind of mean, but anyways, so I took them back into Carla at Imagine It, which is where I got them, in Omaha, Nebraska, and she actually traded them out. Oh yeah, are one of these... I totally forgot that one end of these is more blunt than the other. I don't know if you can tell. So I don't know that it was that way in my ones that I had before. Can you tell that these ones over here are more blunt? Mine didn't say like Addie on the little thing, and I seriously doubt you can see that because I think we're getting closer to the storm because it's getting a lot darker and I don't know if I have enough light now. But it says Addie on the thing and mine didn't before. So these are the newer versions that she had gotten in since I got mine. And they do have like the two ends are different, which I wasn't really thinking about, and I think I remember somebody saying that. So I haven't been paying attention to like which one I'm using. So I've probably been going back and forth. That's interesting. These I really do like. It took a while for me to get used to them, but then they kind of naturally started bending, and you can kind of see it. This is not just the weight of them, because you can, you know, even if I turn them, they still kind of have a little bit of that bend. They kind of got used to how I was going to hold them, and so then they got out of my way more. I will probably use these all the time when I'm making a kid sock. The kid socks, especially with this Perfect where I was not doing 2 at a time, doing 1 at a time, I think that these actually saved me a significant amount of time over doing Magic Loop. And because they're smaller, the socks truthfully seem to fly. This one, you know, and the second one of the orange, you know, the first one it was kind of slower. The second one of the orange went really fast, like I think maybe a day and a half, and that was running kids all around for swim practice and everything. This one flew too. I don't even remember how long it was, but I think these will be my go-to socks for any time that I'm knitting one that is going to be 1 at a time. I definitely like them for the kids socks. I like them, truthfully. I got them replaced so that...
Mommy.
Okay, go to Daddy.
Come here, buddy.
I'm not sure that you saw that, but hopefully you did not, so don't report me. I do like these. I'm not going to go out and replace DPNs for like the tops of hats and stuff, but I do really like them for the 1 at a time socks, and especially these kid socks. These have been living in my On the Lam bag that I won from those ladies. They also have a podcast that you should be watching on YouTube. And I just think the little stick person riding the lamb, which is their logo, is like perfect for some kid socks to ride around in. So, perfect size and the thing.
Mommy.
What, honey? You're done? What are you done with?
Yeah.
Okay, go talk to Daddy, please. Mama is talking to the TV, to the phone, whatever you guys are. Okay, so with that 1 half object, that's what my stash dash was included in my stash dash. So, a couple of other things that I have worked on, I feel like I didn't have anything that I was like currently working on because I finished like 4 things in a week. It took me a while to block everything. But one thing that I started last night, and actually I'm going to step out of camera really quick and open up the other window, and I may get blown out on one side, but I'm losing light like crazy. Alright, that's a little bit better. I look like I'm super oily and have never washed my face ever, but that's okay. We will live with it. Okay, so the next thing that I cast on last night, we have been slowly going through the Indiana Jones series. My husband likes the movies. I have never seen any of them, nor have our kids, so we've been watching them family movie nights. And so last night we were watching one, and I cast on the Huggle Socks by the Knitting Expat, or Mina Phillip. And they were, I don't know how well you can really see, black and white, you can't really see that great. They just have this nice little cable on the side. They were the June, and it is June 30th. Yesterday was June 29th, and that's when I cast them on. But I just finished the Vagary socks not too long ago. Other things have been taking my mojo for knitting pattern socks. These live in my Creative Garage unicorn bag, which is currently covered by cat hair. I need to get out the lint roller for sure. Oh, and I meant to bring over my ball band. Whoops. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to have to get it because I can't remember. Mike, can you get me the ball band?
What ball band?
It's for Fiber Universe. Yeah, it's fallen down in the crack. I meant to get it. I will tell you what this is, what colorway. Okay, shh. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is Cosmic Sock Yarn from the Fiber Universe, and it is Space Dust. Let me see if it will focus. There are.
You want to go upstairs and play?
It's not showing the darker colors the greatest. There's no white. That's from the light. There's blues in here that are kind of dark and bright, and then a really deeper dusty purple. And for heels, toes, and cuffs, here's the ball band, which my lovely assistant just delivered. It is 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon, and it is hand dyed by the Fiber Universe, which is where I got it from. That is a local yarn shop in Peoria, Illinois. I got these while visiting my friend Kirsten, so they're kind of my Kirsten socks. But for the heels, toes, and cuffs, I decided to use Knit Picks Stroll Tweed in the Flagstone Heather, which is 65% merino, 25 nylon, and 10% Donegal tweed. So it just has the little bits on it. I'm doing these 2 at a time, toe up. Make them look a little bit nicer without strings all over them. And here they are. So you can kind of see the little cable a little bit better. So that's kind of the cable. But I do think that this gray looks really nice with this. You can see the darker blues and purples in the sock better than you could in the skein. But I just started these last night while we were watching the movie. They are really easy knit. I'm really enjoying it. I like the little cable pattern. They are on like mirror sides of the sock, so they'll be on the outside of my foot when I wear them. So far, I've really enjoyed using this sock yarn. The Knit Picks is really soft. I'm curious how it will stand up. It is a stroll yarn, which are, you know, marketed as a sock yarn. It's pretty soft. But it is 25% nylon, which is the, you know, the higher amount that you usually find in a sock yarn. So we will see. It feels softer. We'll see. But this other one, I'm really enjoying watching the colors. You can kind of see colors on here. It is blue and purple. It looks purple on the monitor, but like that's blue. So those have been fun. They are pretty easy. I'm just like halfway through my third repeat, and I don't really have to look at the pattern anymore, which is always a plus for me. The vagary socks, I did have to like keep looking at it almost constantly. Not almost constantly, but every time it was time to do another row of patterning, I had to look to really know what I was supposed to be doing where. But these are always kind of in that little pearl section, and so it's easy to remember. And so I've been enjoying that. Then I actually picked up my I knit because punching people is frowned upon bag, which I have socks for my husband in. They are actually, I have lots of needles in here because I had to change the needles I was using. This is Lang Jaw Wool Color Superwash with the reinforcement yarn. I've shown that quite a while back when I started these socks as part of the Giant Feet Along. So I did the reinforced. I did have a previous podcast where it was just coming out way too big, and so I ripped it out. So I am actually using size zeros for these, and I did have zeros that were high sharps. Since I had my wrist surgery back in November, I feel like I'm talking weird because I keep thinking or something. I have had to, the really sharp, the high sharps have been too sharp. I'm catching my yarn and I find that it starts hurting my wrist a lot more. This yarn is also not very like elasticy, and so that could be part of it. But I do really like how it's patterning now that we're out of that reinforcement yarn. Again, I really love this neon green that's coming out of it. This kind of like tealy color that's in here too. I've just really been enjoying. Because of the reinforcement yarn, this part up here is bigger. It kind of looks like I am making a man's organ. I am not. I did a...
Like a piano?
Yes, like a piano. I did a 4x1 rib on the front just because I haven't made him socks before and his feet are abnormally large. And this was the stitch count that was fitting his foot, which didn't make sense to me because it is, I can't remember now, 60, I can't remember if it's 64 or 68, but it was much less than I assumed a sock for him would be on a size 15 foot. And it's not like he has long skinny feet or anything like that, but that's, with this particular yarn, that's how it was coming out. And so I put that ribbing in there so that you can go, it's fine. Just don't like
Emma, bring Elizabeth.
So that it would have
Or
that
Violet.
extra like pull in. Also, as I'm getting a little bit further down the foot, I think that I am going to do a mini heel flap. What are you doing? A mini heel flap adjustment. That is something that is included in the Knitting Expat sock club collection thing, and since he has such big feet and big ankles and all that kind of stuff, I'm gonna try that because I'm afraid of the top really being too tight across the front of his foot. And so I haven't tried this on him recently. I may have to stop for a little bit. I haven't tried it on him recently, so we will see how that goes, but I don't know if this is 6 inches. I'm really bad at measurements. It's almost as long as my hand, but he has a size 15 foot, so the shape of this is really bugging me. Like the way that it looks like the head of something. Anyways. I do like this pattern though. I love this neon green, which I bought it for the dark green because Mike's favorite color is green, but that lime makes it fun. And it does kind of pattern differently on the front and the back. Just those pearls just mix it up just a tiny bit. Okay, I'm gonna take a break while the baby calms down. Okay, so a long time ago, when I kind of went over my all the whips I had, I think at the beginning of the year, I showed the Azalea Cami, which is by Pam Allen, and there's not a full-on picture in what I printed off, but it does have just like a spaghetti strap, and then the bottom has a little bit of lace, which is basically why I got it. I do think that this picture is probably inaccurate and is probably pinned back behind because, for instance, the size that I'm making, it's like 27 inches across when I'm going to end up with like a 41 or something like that. So there's like 12 inches of positive ease at the bottom, according to the schematic, because I was actually kind of freaking out because it looks gigantic. But I pulled it out and started working on it now that I finished the morning mist. I have a real desire, hello Emma.
Hi.
I have a real desire to cast on some of my other summer tops. But I also have a desire to cast on some sweaters. Like, I just really want to work on a sweater, but I want to make things that I can wear now, even though I know fall's going to be here so soon. I just am torn. So I pulled this out to kind of work on it. I did work on this at sit-in school last year, and so if it was finished for that, that would be amazing. But that is 2 weeks from tomorrow, right? 30th, no, maybe it's 3 weeks. Okay, so maybe it is possible. 3 weeks is maybe okay. But basically I was just where this little thing was, and I've done, you know, a total of like 8 rows. I had a super another Hiya Sharp in there. My hair is driving me crazy. I decided to let it naturally part today, and I just feel like it looks stringy up top. Anyways, that's why I keep touching my hair. I'm sorry. There was a Sharp in it. This is Queensland Collection. I'll see if I have any ball bands in here, but like I said, I started this last year, so I'm guessing not. Oh, there's one in the ball. Nice. Okay, so Queensland Collection, Savannah. Woo! This is a tiny little tag. It is 66% silk and 34% linen. And this colorway is 25. And I don't know if maybe the one on her actual tag is the name, but it's like Araucania. I don't know. There's not an actual like name printed on the label. It had Hiya Sharps in it, and because it's linen and silk, I was catching it constantly, and it was making my hands tired after like 1 minute. So I did get some new chalgoos to put into it. This is what I have so far. And this is what I mean by it looks enormous. Like, it's wider than both of my shoulders put together. I had to gauge swatch quite a few times to get this. I'm using a 1.5 on a pretty much DK-ish weight yarn for this stockinette section. It normally calls for a 5 to 6. The pattern called for the stockinette to be done in a 3, and I'm using a 1.5. So I did, when I went into Imagine It today, and I bought this yarn at Imagine It, I did get a chalgoo 1.5, so that it's still sharp but not as sharp, and that does make a good difference. This has not been blocked, obviously, but that's where I was kind of talking to her, like the density of the fabric and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I don't know if I am super like sure that this is going to be great, but because it's linen, I think it will just soften up a lot, because right now it kind of seems a little stiff, and plus it's really wide now, but it's supposed to be, so it's supposed to go around your hips, which is why I mean that this picture I think is probably pinned in the back, which kind of annoys me. I don't know hardly anyone who is a thin little waif with no boobs. Even people who are super skinny usually have some kind of boobs, but it seems like most of the models that are used for these more, this was published by Quince & Company, they're usually these waifs, and it's so inaccurate, and you know, then if you're pinning something back that's supposed to be kind of swingy at the bottom, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But this is kind of my summer top that I'm working on for now. I'll see how it goes. I just got these chalgoos and just did a few more rows today, right before we came home. And so I'll see how it goes, and if I think that I can make a go for it, then I will try to have it done for Synod School to wear as an example, but that's where I am for now on that. That is all of my works in progress. Oh, and it is in a Beach Dreams bag, and you can find her on Etsy. Beach Dreams bags on the little tag. There you go. Okay, so then as far as yarn porn, I haven't gotten very much. A Southern Ladies Ramblings on Instagram was someone that sent me minis for Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted last Christmas, and you know, I started following her on Instagram, and anyways, so she had recently put out, you know, like a call, like, does anybody want to trade minis with me? And so I said, sure, let's do it. And so she sent, we were gonna do 10, but then my sock yarn blanket is the Pinwheel Scrap Blanket by Knitting Expat, and one square is 8 of the pinwheel shapes. And so I was like, you know what? I have 16 to trade. Would you want to do 16 instead of 10? And so that was cool with her. And so she sent me, and she went so above and beyond the sweetness of the swap. She sent me some markers with a little stitch marker, like progress keeper. And like, she just put these little cute pieces of cardboard in and told me what all of them are. So these are well, some of them are deep stash, and then like ones that she knew what they were, she put on the little card what colorways they are, where they're from. These were the Knit Picks yarns that she had and sent to me. These were some self-striping. But she wound them up and made them look so cute and told me what they were, and I was like, oh, I did not do as good a job. I made a bag of 16 balls and then forgot to mail them for like 3 days. And these are all like yarns from Knit Crate, which I am actually pretty excited about because I don't do Knit Crate and I'm a little bit curious about it. Just wanted to try some of those. So that was really the only yarn porn that I had for you. But then because I didn't order it and don't get shipping notifications or anything, I always forget that my husband had bought me the Knitted Wit Her Story Sock Club when he was in Tahoe and was part of my Guilt yarn collection. So my last month of that was the June one, which showed up just unexpectedly, which is kind of cool when you open the mailbox and there's something you weren't expecting, because I always kept forgetting about it. Anyways, the Her Story Sock Club is basically each month she finds someone a woman of history to highlight and gives you, you know, this blurb about their life and the yarn. And this month it was Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space. So she was a Russian. And the yarn is called Out of This World. So I imagine it is like what she would have seen in space. There are lots of colors in there mixed in with the black. And a cat hair. Sorry. But this has been really fun. It's been very interesting to learn about the women. Knitted Wit. I believe she's Knitted Wit on Instagram. She does have her own website, which is knittedwit.com. For some reason I was thinking she was on Etsy. Maybe she is also on Etsy, or maybe has changed that. This is on her Victory sock, which is an 80/20. And it's each time inspired by a woman of history, so it's fun to learn about that. Also, because it's like a Russian, we've kind of been watching The Americans, which is about some Russian spies in the 80s, and it's been very interesting to me just to learn some of this stuff, and in light of things that have been said about the American election of 2016 in reference to Russia. Just kind of learning more of that history has been interesting. We were watching The Americans and we have not finished it yet. And I ended up texting my mom and asking, you know, was it a big deal where we were living? We lived in West Central Missouri in the country, halfway between like Springfield and Kansas City. So rural, you know, no big cities close to us. Or super close, and I just was curious whether it was a big deal, or whether I was too young to remember the Cold War. I was born in '83. I don't know if that like sounds old or young to you, but I was born in '83, and so, you know, I started school when like 89, 88, 89, something like that. And I don't remember anything about it. I don't remember the space shuttle blowing up, things like that. But I also don't know if, because of our family dynamics and the place we were living, if that type of news was just not something that was a big deal. My mom said that she didn't really know a lot about it herself. There were missile silos, which I knew that there were because when I went back and lived with my dad in that area in high school, I remember like the bus going by the missile silos that are like in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere. And so I'm like, there was some stuff, but I didn't know if it was kind of like a big deal there. Anyways. All that to say, I have enjoyed learning more about this woman from Russia who was a, what did they actually call it? I mean, she was like a party line person. And for some reason, I'm having a total, yes, she was a reliable communist. Total mind fart. It was interesting to hear about her and her life, and then, you know, with just how Russia has been talked about more in the United States in the last couple of years, and some of the stuff that's happened like with the Ukraine and all of those type of things, and then also like watching that show and thinking about, you know, was it really like a big deal where I lived or not? I mean, it's very possible that I was just too young to remember if anything came up, and so I think it was a little bit of both. The other thing that I have, I decided when I was getting new needles from Imagine It today for those two things that had sharp needles in that I wanted to change out, I did get a skein of yarn called Sugar Skull from the Dyeing Arts in Omaha, or she's in Omaha. I got it from Imagine It Yarn Shop in Omaha, and this is her fabulous 75% superwash, 20% nylon, 5% stellina. It is gold stellina, but I could not resist this rainbow. So I did go ahead and pick that up. I saw it the other day when I was in there exchanging my flexi flips, but I really, really wanted this neon rainbow so much. So that is all of my bought yarn porn for now, for today, for the last 5 weeks. I've not been ordering yarn. It's kind of sad to go to the mailbox and there's not packages, but I had gone kind of crazy. Hey! Babies do not help with podcasting. Please do not touch it.
Come here, Violet.
I'm getting really grainy and I don't know if I should just... Violet! No.
Are you still recording?
Yes. Stop standing with the tripod. It's not strong enough for you anyways. There's a baby. You're so ornery. Okay. So one of the... Okay. I'm sorry for all the interruptions during this podcast. One of the other reasons that I had not really gotten any knitting done, well, it looks like I got a ton of knitting done, but one of the reasons that I haven't podcasted in a long time was because I didn't feel like I was using the time that I had that I could have podcasted for other things. And that other thing is that I went to that dyeing workshop at Knit Paper Scissors, and I thought that it would kind of like take care of the desire to learn how to dye more. It did not. It made it worse. And so I actually got some yarn and some dye and started playing with that. Yeah. So I'll show you some of those. Hold on. Isaiah? Or Isaac? Please go play somewhere else. You need to be quiet. Mommy's recording. So the first thing that I did, hold on, sorry, 5 kids. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I planned a colorway. I was having a hard time of thinking of things that I could do that were not like I was trying to copy something that some other dyer had done. And so I just decided to start out with a few colors that were inspired by my kids and then knit socks out of them. I bought a package of minis in order to practice on them. And so that's all that I've dyed so far is the minis. Because I wanted to get everything right before I went into a full skein, and I didn't buy very many full skeins, and so I really wanted to make sure that I knew what I was going to do. So I planned a color for each child, and then I have a few others that I either played with or were using up dyes and stuff, but I'll tell you what they are. And hopefully it's not so grainy that you can't even see this. But the first one that I planned was Emma's. It was the one that came to me immediately when I'm like, what would a pair of socks designed by Emma look like? And my thought was, Isaac, you need to stop. My immediate thought was zebra stripes with neon speckles. So that is what we have here. This is the Emma colorway, and it has a rainbow of speckles. I'm not sure how clearly this is being shown, but that's what this is, and it is self-striping. I wound the stupid thing out on the backs of chairs and did it, and I was really happy because the black came out black, and this was the first time I felt like my speckles looked like speckles and not variegation. So this is Emma's. Isaiah's I also did self-striping. After I thought of Emma's, the boys both came to me next, and I really felt like stripes for some reason. I will not be doing any more stripes until I have a proper like warping board or whatever to do it, because it was a total pain in the butt. It made my back hurt a ton. It was just, yeah. But I wanted Isaiah's to be striped. So what I did with his is it has a neon orange with a moss green and a blue. I can't remember. I think it was the frozen blue that I used. And it had, so those are all stripes, and then they will have the gray that you see will be smaller stripes in between each color stripe. And my manicure looked nice, and it's since grown out, so I'm sorry that you didn't get to experience it when it looked pretty. The next kid is Elizabeth, and so I had watched lots of videos on Instagram, and I knew that hot pink, hot blue, and hot purple would be the colors for her, but I also wanted a black on it for two reasons. One, because she loves Descendants, and if you are not familiar with little girl culture, Descendants is a actual person show, like actresses and actors, and they are the descendants of the famous people, but the main characters are the villains' kids, and they wear lots of black and leather and things, so I wanted to do that. Kim Knits has a Kim as in C-H-E-M, like chemistry, Knits on YouTube had a tutorial on dry rubbing black onto colors, and so that's what I tried to do. I tried to do it with a gray just so it wasn't so like in your face, and that was this one, and it I think looks just muddy. I actually like it better than I did when I first did it, but it just wasn't the like contrast pop that I was wanting. And sorry, I still have those cotton ties that I put on when I was dyeing to make it easier for myself. So that was my first attempt. Then I did, oh, I don't know if I even said, you dry rub the black. So like after the yarn is dry, you just start putting it on and then you heat set it. And then I redid it with actual black, and I got way too much because you can't really even tell that there's pink in here. You can kind of see the purple and a little bit of the blue, but this was just not what I was going for. In truth, this one is more like what I wanted. If it had just had a little bit like sharper blacks on it, probably, but so that's kind of why I was wanting to do the mini skeins as practice. And I am going to completely, like, same colors, completely different idea. The dry rubbing didn't work for me. So I'm gonna do something, same idea, different technique for Lizzie's next practice skein before I do her full-time one, or her full skein. Isaac was also another striped one. I did a more neon green with a regular orange for him and a lighter blue than Isaiah's. The one that looks grayish brown in this is supposed to be navy. I don't know for sure why I did it that way, because I was doing stripes and the way that I had seen them done at the dye workshop was doing them cold. And so I'm not sure if that has something to do with why that looks, I don't know if you can really see. That looks gray and not navy. Like this dark color was supposed to be navy. And so I'm gonna retry this when I have something, you know, to warp with, and do it with heat instead of cold, and then setting it, and see if that comes out better. Because I made sure I used quite a bit of the navy, because it does say like it takes more per like the weight of your yarn of like black and navy to make it the full color, full saturation. So that was that. Then violet, I did lots of different techniques on. My first rendition came out as this. Also, if you haven't noticed, my skeins are sparkly, because that was the like set that they had from where I got it. So it was supposed to be like a lighter purple with some darker purple on it, and then some darker purple, black, and like moss speckles on it. So you can kind of see that it variegated out. The light purple was pretty much lost, and so yeah, it was a lot darker than I intended. And then I retried it a little bit differently and got a little bit closer to what I was going for. The black still seems like it spread out a lot more than I wanted. I think that I've kind of figured out the speckling thing a little bit more to get more what I want, because Emma's are more spots than big variegations. I don't know if you can tell that the way it's skeined, but I was much more happy with that. The green also kind of spread out on hers, but this is closer to what I intended with less black. So that got a little bit closer. When I was doing violets, I ended up with some extra purples, and so I kind of dip dyed a couple just to play around. So I have, you know, one end that is lighter, and that's the one that's kind of spiraling here, and then it goes to the darker. You can kind of tell in the end that it's two different colors. That is the same for this, only it was a different lighter purple. So it's very lavendery. And then this was using up one of the purples that I had thought that I was going to use on violets, but it did not turn out the way I wanted, and so I completely took that color out. It's actually like kind of like more of a mauve-y color than purple. And then I just wanted to try a green. So this is the green that I tried, and it is a tonal green. So you can kind of see that there's different bits. And then I wanted to do a berry smoothie, was just kind of like my inspiration thought. Again, this one came out way darker than I intended the first time, with what was intended to be speckles being more of a variation. There's a little bit right there, but it's mostly variegation, not variation. And so I tried again, and it did get closer, but I was still having that issue, and it was right after this one that I kind of figured out like what I needed to be doing differently. That one's a little bit closer, but truthfully, you know, looking at them now after like being disappointed that it didn't come out how I wanted, I actually like this yarn more than this one, even though this is what I actually closer to what I wanted. And then the last couple of things, I wanted to do one that was dip dyed and had a rainbow on the end. I really like those, and so I did one. And I'm gonna actually unwrap this one so you can actually see it. But it does kind of gradiate. The black is the darkest down here. Gets a little bit lighter because it was dip dyed, and then you have the rainbow. And it is a neon rainbow. There's a little bit of white here because I tied it too tight. Figuring that out has been fun. But then from this color, I had some left over after I had hand painted on that little rainbow, and so I just took a skein and pretty much dumped the color on just for fun, and got this fun little doohickey. Yeah, so that's my new adventures. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. I am kind of interested in maybe making it a business, but for now I'm just having fun and exploring that creativity. It's a different creativity than when you're knitting. And the thought of making something from plain yarn into a color that I love and then knitting something with it really inspires me and makes me feel all giddy. With the kids' yarn, I think what I'm going to do is just knit a long tube and then put Afterthought heels, toes, and cuffs in them to make shorty socks. Isaiah's total sock was 47 grams. And these are 20 grams. So I think that I can probably get shorties out of them, especially for the smaller kids, and especially, well, I will have to use heels, toes, and cuffs for them, but just to kind of see how it's coming out and if I like the amount of stripe I have and the colors once they're knitted up, and to kind of try the yarn a little bit more. But that's what I'm planning on doing with all of the kids' like finished skeins, is just making a big tube and putting Afterthought stuff in them so that they're used and not just wasted practice stuff. And then like the ones that I kind of like did, you know, more than one, but they are different. They're the same colors, but different saturations. Then I was kind of almost thinking about doing like a gradient, like a cowl or something that kind of gradiates as it changes. But we will see. I'm just having fun experimenting with that, and I'm getting a few more pans to make it a little bit easier and more accessible and more successful. And then we'll see where it goes. But I will be back in a bit after I eat my supper. Alright, so the podcast, as it turns out, is already like an hour and 20 minutes long, and so I am not going to go through and do a huge life in the Manse section like I sort of was planning to catch you up on everything, because we have been extremely busy doing lots of stuff, and summer's flying by. I have a bunch of pictures from the last month since the last time that I did a podcast. As it turns out, I have way more pictures of some kids than others. Partially because, like, at the town festival, you know, of course it's the toddler that I'm with, and the baby that is in my lap during fireworks and things of that nature. I'll just kind of say, like, we've had 5 million meetings constantly, both me and Mike, church related for both of the churches that we're helping, well, our church in the church that we are helping. Also, we've done some lessons. Our town festival was last weekend. You'll see quite a few pictures of that, a couple videos. And Emma went to camp for a week, so she was gone for that. And I apologize, there is a cat that has decided that the tripod is the best place to put his butt. There's some pictures of dying. We've had a lot of really weird weather. We had like a week and a half where it was storming pretty severely, like almost every night. Yeah, I can't even remember what pictures I just put on there. Just some random family stuff and festival and t-ball and coach pitch baseball. Ended this week. Turns out I took a picture of one kid and not the other. I can't decide if that flash is fireworks or lightning, because it's actually thundering outside and people were putting off fireworks a little bit ago. But that was kind of why I wanted to get this finished up and kind of end it without going into, this is what we've done for the past month. I don't think it's been quite a month, but rather to get this, because I have to take my computer across the parking lot and don't really want to do that in the rain. I did forget one thing, which I am remembering now. I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but I had a giant feed along and there wasn't really participation in it. One person posted a finished object, and Sand Van, you are amazing, and kudos to you for loving your husband enough to knit some giant socks. I just picked mine up like 2 days ago. Obviously, they were not done for Father's Day. But Sandvan, who is Sandy from Ontario, if you would contact me on Ravelry and tell me what your favorite pattern on your wish list is, and I will gift that to you. Participation. Like, I haven't even finished mine. Okay, so if over in the Ravelry group, if there is anything that you want me to talk about, that you're wondering about me, that you're wondering about knitting or anything like that, go ahead and ask a question over there. There's places to share your goals, introduce yourself, all that kind of stuff. I need to do some updating and answering comments. I read everything immediately, but sometimes I'm not in the headspace, or like there's 15 kids where I can read and flip, but I can't really type. That type of thing. I have a lot of children. That's not really like a super great excuse, but it is kind of why I feel like my interaction isn't coming back at you guys as much as it should be. And I am reading, I am interacting with you in my mind, but then sometimes I just am too busy to actually like answer you back, even though in my head I'm thinking of it. So the Ravelry group and comments on YouTube, I will probably get updated this week sometime. It's been insane lately with how busy we've been. And this next 2 weeks should be better before we go to Senate school. So that will be great. But anyways, I think that is everything for this week. I hope that you have tons of time to enjoy your knitting, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And it's bath time, and somebody had to get out, and so now they're mad. Seriously, is that lightning or fireworks? There was just thunder a few minutes ago, so I feel like it was lightning. So I'm getting off here before the electricity goes out in our 100-year-old house. Happy knitting! To cook.
Okay. Bye, guys.
How do you feel about your first dyeing adventure, honey?